All right, it's that time. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this webinar, a very important topic on getting hired earlier to projects, changing your firm's perception from being just a subcontractor to a technology designer. We're going to get into why that's so important. Big thing. So this webinar is open. Most of our webinars are to HTA certified members and supporting brands only. This one's been opened up to more folks as of last week. So if you're new to the Home Technology Association, welcome. We're going to get into some of the tools of HTA certification because it was built to help this topic quite a bit to get respect amongst the trade partners early. So some of these tools might be new to you, and you'll learn some of the benefits, almost like the unfair advantages and the tools that HTA certified integrators have versus folks that are not certified. And just one piece of housekeeping business, I wanted to, for those that have not, for our certified dealers, that is, that have not yet added any photos to our inspiration gallery and our homepage slider. The website has a very fresh look now. Our website, every 5 seconds, the HTA site is changing images. These could be stills, they could be even short 5-second videos. If you click on any of these pages, it'll bounce to that certified integrators page. And they also show up in the inspiration gallery. And all of these images that are submitted by you are SEO. We automatically do all the SEO on them too. So really cool stuff. I'll put the link in the chat for those that haven't done this yet, so you can add your projects to this really neat tool. On our screen right now, you see our HTA supporting brand logos here. These are the folks, the brands, the vendors that are behind the mission to get the best integrators hired to projects and get the lesser qualified firms taken out of contention for consideration on projects, and also helping cheerlead you on to get projects onto projects earlier. So these brands, we want to thank them wholeheartedly for supporting our mission here. They are worthy of your business. So I wanted to thank those folks. So HTA certified integrators will know me from our prior conversations. But for those of you that are not familiar with me and why am I qualified to give this presentation, just give you a little background. I was an integrator for 16 years at a high-end firm in Los Angeles called DSI. DSI is still around. They're still a real high-end luxury integrator. And I was in business development and sales there. So I learned what I'm talking about here from the trenches. And I was an early outreach instructor before I knew there was a thing called a CEU, a continuing education unit that architects and designers need for their license. I was teaching and making up my own classes on home theater design and home automation and such, which led CEDIA to ask me to help be on a small group of integrators that helped create the CEDIA Outreach Instructor Program, which, by the way, has now been rebranded the Design and Build Outreach Program. But it's a really neat program that CEDIA has. It's my favorite benefit that they have. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I helped create and start that program, which is designed to help you build mind share and to become a subject matter expert to the local trade partners in your marketplace. When I use the term trade partner, I'm going to be referring to architects, designers, and builders. I mean all three of those folks. And interesting, before co-founding the Home Technology Association, for 2 years, I worked at a company called Axiom Design. This was a major shift in how I learned a lot about how integrators are perceived by trade partners. And a lot of that lessons learned helped inform the Home Technology Association, because it was pretty brutal. Once I went back to these architect, design, and build firms that I knew as an integrator, now I'm a consultant, and it's like the gloves came off, and then they told me what they really think about integrators. So it was pretty eye-opening experience. So I'll get into that a little bit further as well. And then in 2017, I helped co-found the Home Technology Association. And for those that don't know what the Home Technology Association is, we created the industry's only standard of excellence for our home technology integration firms. I liken it to like GIA ratings for diamonds or Michelin stars for restaurants. Not anybody could get those. You have to prove it that you're good. And very much on the topic of today, what you'll learn is building trust with prospective clients and trade partners, because so many people have been burned by our trade. We're helping elevate that trust and differentiate. And also from tools like our budget calculator, which is pretty famous. It simplifies the sales process immensely, and which by also helps close the sales close ratio, brings project prices typically up when the folks that use the calculator. And very much on to today's topic, it helps you get hired earlier, and I'll explain why, the trust factors and such. So let's talk about the why, because every integrator out there knows they should have strong relationships with trade partners, and you probably do, right? You probably already have relationships with at least with builders, because they're the last person in the chain when a house project is being done, right? So you all have relationships with these folks. Maybe not all three trades, architect, designer, and builder, or maybe you're really trying to increase that, and that's why you're tuned in today. Good. It's really, really, really important to get in with these folks. And so our agenda today is the benefits, other benefits of working with them, understanding how integrators are perceived. We're talking about building trust and value. And then we're going to get into some rules of engagement, the do's and don'ts. And again, like I mentioned, just as a reminder on the Q&A side of things, please feel free to ask any questions during this as well through the chat feature or the Q&A feature here on Zoom. So the goal of all this is to, again, today's topic especially, get them to hire you early. Let's see here. So, all right, so here's some of the benefits. Maybe some of them are maybe not so obvious. Is, first of all, this part is when they trust you, you do a great job for them, then they'll give you a strong endorsement, and that strong endorsement will really nudge that client to hire you, right? So when they refer you, it's your job to lose, because the client's putting a lot of trust in what that architect, designer, or builder. So whoever they like, good chance for you. This is a big one that I learned, especially with interior designers, that if you work with them in a collaborative way, and you before you go to the client meeting, try to find as much about that project as you can, and make the assumption they want to hide the technology, and then share some of the solutions that you came up with them ahead of that meeting. When I did this, I found out that the things that the higher end luxury expensive products, we're talking motorized lifts and things like TrueFig, higher end face plates and such, that are great things, make the project look way better. Designers love that, and they'll sell it for you. So sometimes you might be wondering, this is an expensive faceplate upgrade, or no one's going to spend for this TrueFig or whatever it might be. You'll be surprised. So they have a lot of power over the client and a lot of influence. So make them the hero, right? So instead of you coming up all this stuff right there on the fly with the client, put your ego in check a little, make them the hero, show them the stuff ahead of time. Not that you assume they're going to try to sell it to the client, but often they just love being the idea person in front of that client, and it does amazing work. I've seen it really close some great high-end projects, and the clients don't even ask the price. They just do it because the interior designer said do it. You'll also find, because those projects will look aesthetically good, get those projects photographed and enter them into different awards. At DSI, we did that quite a bit. We were very much into photographing our projects. If you want to have some tips on convincing clients to photograph your house, reach out to me later. I've got some great tips for you on that. And we would enter these projects, and they'd win a lot. So we had a lot of these glass trophies in our showroom, like a whole wall of trophies of awards we won. And that was a massive credibility booster, but we got them from these really neat projects we worked with trade partners. And then that gets you into magazines too. So having your magazine articles, there's companies out there that will make like plaques out of them and put them in your showroom. That's its credibility factors. So again, all those projects, I look back, And if you go to DSI's place today, you'll see a whole wall of these things. They came about of projects working with architects, designers, and builders, like early design too. So all of this kind of helps. It's like feeds the flywheel. And then also when the economy goes up and down, as we all know, and we weathered that 2008 recession quite well at DSI, and we could look back at that and say, because we had so many trade partner relationships, that even though business slowed down, we had a big net of referral sources coming into us. So we weathered that storm without even having to lay people off. So it does make companies more stable. And an interesting statistic from Matt Bernath at Vital. He works, for those of you that know him, he works with integrators to help them with processes and finances and make sure that you're profitable and doing your accounting correctly. And he's like a business consultant and coach. He noted from extensive working with many integrators that are trying that do not have trade partner relationships do not break past that $2 million annual sales. That seems to be like a ceiling somewhat if you don't have trade partner relationships. And you see is that once those integrators make that an effort, they go out there and start doing business development and making a concerted effort to get those relationships, they break through that. So that's pretty important thing to know, because they're on the higher end projects. So that's really important to know. Now, for the HTA certified integrators, this should not be a surprise, because these are linked to in the monthly newsletter. We have these tips on the HTA dealer blog, 7 architect marketing tips, 8 interior designer marketing tips, and 9. So we're not going to get into all those today, but the material, some of what we're talking about today come from that. If you're an HTA certified dealer and you need a reminder on there, just email me, jc@htacertified.org, and we'll get those out to you. And if you're not an HTA certified integrator yet and you're interested in this, again, reach out to me and we could talk about this. But what I'm sharing here today is not just wisdom that I have from being in the trenches, but crowdsourced from 250 HTA certified integrators around, now I could say the world. It used to be just the US, but USA, Canada, and now we're in the United Kingdom. So these tips are crowdsourced from some of the best integrators, and we're always learning from you. We're learning from each other, and we're sharing this information back with you. So it'll compress the time it takes for you to meet a trade partner and then turn them into a profitable referring partner. So trust and credibility. This is major. So this is the problem. And this is why the HTA was even created, is because of the bad perception that a lot of the public has towards our trade. So shouldn't be a surprise, because you've probably been on takeover projects that look just like what you see here in that rack, right? It's a problem. In this photo, the second photo here on the right is a real photograph taken on the 405 freeway in Los Angeles of guys like this, Mike, around the house services, audio video installation, handyman work, window washing, and more. I mean, really? I mean, these are the folks out there that are screwing up our trade. And when a client hires based on price because they don't know anything, they don't know that there are quality integrators out there, things happen in this, and it's a low barrier to entry industry, as we know too. For example, only 21 of the 50 states in this country have a low voltage license requirement. So less than half. We get integrators from those 21 states applying for HTA certification once in a while that don't have a license. So they're working illegally. Automatically, they cannot be HTA certified just from that one thing alone. But it's kind of scary that some of these companies are selling some of the major product lines. So it's too easy to start an integration firm. And because it's so easy, you've got a lot of unqualified folks in there. So it's important to know that, because that's why when you go to meet a new trade partner and they kind of disrespect you a bit, if you have that, you're guilty until proven innocent, that's why. And don't take it personally. It's just they've been burned before. As a side note, when we were forming the HTA standard back in 2017, the question to our board of advisors, and these are folks that you know, like John Clancy from Crestron and David Weinstein from Lutron was on that, Jason Knott from CE Pro, Bryce Judd was with Control 4 at the time, JC Murphy from Savant. So these are all brands that you know, Jason Sloan from Sonance, and I'm not naming them all, but some of the names that you probably know. When we said, okay, what percent of this industry would you feel comfortable referring your friends and family to? What percent of this industry do you think is doing a great job? Tell you what it is. Okay, 20. I heard it 20%. 20% of the industry doing good. That's a good guess. The consensus of the board is about 10%, which, even if it's 20%, that's a pretty sad number, right? So why does that matter? Why are we talking about this? Because if 90% or 80% of this industry is not doing a great job, then what is the chance that the trade partner you're talking to has been burned by somebody? It's almost a given. So I look back to some of the experiences that I had. I'm in there first time they meet me, and they're treating me pretty crappy, really, and that's because of things like this. So it's just important to know that. So, and this is one of the ways you want to break the stereotype. As you know, we're often called the AV guys, integrators are, and you want to move away from that stereotype. And there's a couple ways to do that. Is, because for better or worse, the term that is being used and even filed with the U.S. Department of Labor is integrator, not, that's the term for our trade. So the AV guys, what we're called, and as you know, you do so much more than audio video. But too many integrators are talking about audio, video, and controls, and that's the stereotype. Oh, you guys are trying to, sell home automation, and my clients had a home automation system and they didn't like it. I don't need you. Well, leading with lighting and shading, architects and designers care about this stuff. They understand that is, every house has lights, right? So lead with those things. If you get your foot in the door with with the lighting and the shading, and if you're doing energy manager, that's another big one. That's, a very ascendant topic. And lighting fixtures, really big topic. They're more apt to talk to you then. Don't talk about the audio, video controls. Once you're on the project, all that other stuff comes with it. It just backfills. So it's just changing your focus. So the other thing too, that too many integrators do is they hang their identity on their brands. You are the product, not your brands, right? Like, do they buy a Porsche or a Lamborghini, a Mercedes, or they buy Olin shocks, Brembo brakes, Denso ignition, all these little parts? But too many integrators are talking about all the little parts and pieces, and the clients don't know what these brands are. Almost none of them, right? They know the TV brands and maybe Sonos, but maybe Lutron. But beyond that, these brands are not a household name. So talk about what you do. That's so important. I'm going to show a slide in a moment from ESA, but one of the things that I've really grown to appreciate in time is sales training. There is an art to this, and there's also art in talking to the different types of personalities that make up an architect, designer, and builder. There are some similarities they have in their style and how they like to be talked to. I'll show a slide in a moment from the Elite Sales Academy. That's ESA. That is a sales training program that comes under the Vital Management group. So the next slide will have a QR code if you want to learn more about that. Also, Brad Pierce from Simplified Sales is another sales trainer. I've been in sales since in my 20s, and I'm in my 50s now. And I had never had formalized training, but I have gone through some of these courses, and it's eye-opening how having processes and knowing psychology of sales and how to read people and how their communication style could do wonders for your sales closing ratio and to get the respect from those folks. So that might be something you want to do. But you want to differentiate yourself. So certifications, obviously it's self-serving to say HTA certified, but it's a given. It makes absolute sense when a client, and here's another thing that's really important to talk about, because this is another misconception of integrators out there, is that the person has to know, oh, I'm HTA certified, I have some CDIA certified technicians, or I'm Crestron certified, that just saying those words doesn't mean anything unless you explain what that means. Once you give a brief explanation of why that matters, and especially if there's some kind of website you can link them to, and a follow-up to explain why that matters, it does build trust and credibility. And a good example of this is GIA ratings for diamonds. Most of you probably know what that is. If you don't, this will be a key learning experience for you today. On the way home, go by a jeweler's shop or a jewelry shop and say you want to get, a pair of 1 carat diamond earrings for, a gift, and let them do their qualification with you. And I'll bet you within a minute, they are going to explain they sell GIA or EGL rated diamonds. If you don't know what it means, ask. And when they tell you what the elevator pitch on this, tell me what you think. You're probably going to buy an EGL or GIA rated diamond. So even the proof of that is, and when I ask this of folks, and I say, well, did you buy it once they give you the elevator pitch? Yeah. Okay. Well, and was that diamond a little more money than the one that wasn't rated? Yeah. But you saw the value in the one that was rated, right? Yeah. Well, that's the same thing with mentioning what HTA certification is. You have to give them a little elevator pitch. And for all of these, I'm talking about CEDIA too. My staff is CEDIA certified. That means that we're on top of education, and we're continually learning. We're certified by the brands that we install. So talking up those things will differentiate yourself. And other things too, and I'm happy to see this trend amongst more integrators, and that is hosting events if you have a showroom space, have trade partner events where it's kind of a show and tell. If you don't have a showroom, maybe you can do it one of your great projects. Ask the client if you could have a little open house there, or at manufacturer showrooms if there's one that's close by in the area. They'd be happy to host some events. So it's a great way to get them to experience technology in a more relaxed atmosphere. We talked about the press coverage going after that, and get trade partner testimonials. It's so much more powerful for them to brag about you than you to brag about you, right? So that trust factor that they could give you. We're going to get into the HTA design partner designation, but this is and I'll get into the story of that, but this is a massive thing to help with credibility because it was built with their input. And another thing that I don't see enough of in this industry is to talk about how you work with trade partners on your website. It's a minority of websites even talk about that. They'll spend a lot of time talking about the brands they sell, again, which these clients don't know these brands. So why are you spending valuable time talking about brands that they don't even know? And again, they're trying to buy your experience, not these brands. They want the experience. But do talk about how you work with architects, designers, and builders, that you're collaborative, that you like to work with them, that you do design and engineering, that you should brought in early. That is important stuff for the trade partners to know about, but also prospective clients to know that you know how to talk with those folks and that you want to work with their team. I see one question here. Do you work marketing and photos into the contracts at all? Wondering how you approach getting permission to shoot project regularly. We didn't put it into contracts at DSI because sometimes that would be a hard no, right up front. But once that, I won't get into too much of the details here, but just a couple tips on there is that when the project was done, the client's happy, they're ecstatic with this. We would say, hey, we'd love to get this and enter your project into an award, and here's what we'll do. Any picture, any photo that's on a wall or any painting that's on the wall will be photoshopped into something else. So there's nothing personally identifiable there. And you have veto power on the photos after they're photoshopped, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. If I enter in any contest, I'll show you which photos to get your permission. And I won't say you live in this town. I'll say the greater Los Angeles area instead of Malibu or Beverly Hills or Holmby Hills or something like that. So they really couldn't be identified. And I don't think I ever got a hard no. No, one time I did. One time I got a hard no from a client. But beyond that, we were able to be in some insane homes, like with literally Picassos down the hallway. And I did some videos, some of my videos of me in my younger days on YouTube, which are still out there. There's literally Picassos down the hallway, but you can't see them. They're all fuzzed out. and these are, billionaire clients. So sharing some of those, that's a couple of the tips that I did for photography in the past. All right, so this is a slide not from me. This is from the Elite Sales Academy, ESA. I'm not going to get into this now, but if you're taking pictures, and by the way, this whole webinar is being recorded and will be on the HTA channel. So don't be nervous about taking photos of everything. But this is one photograph here that's pretty interesting. And there's a whole class that Patrick gets into on this, but how to talk to these folks. It's pretty interesting. They're different. Using the same approach to all of these different personality types is not efficient. So the QR code there to the Elite Sales Academy will tell you a little bit more about their class. So that's a class that you can take that happens every Friday. This is a big topic right here. This is a key takeaway. What's in it for them? This is how you get success. When you approach these folks, instead of making it me, we're so great. We've got the best brands, the best programmers, the best this, the best that. This is what integrators typically doing, even the trunk slammers. But when you approach them like, this is how you benefit, architect, interior designer, by working with us early. And I'll tell you, I still teach these folks today. I teach at some of the national conventions, and when I'm talking about these things, they get it. But you have to be very specific about it. So space planning, right? And a key term that if you don't know it now. It's called schematic design phase. There'll be a link later that will tell you some of these definitions. But schematic design is the early design phase of an architect. They have three main phases: schematic design, design development, and construction drawings. Boom, 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 those three. Schematic design phase is like the very early conceptual design, where it's like kind of like, pencil sketches, napkin sketches of where these rooms going to be. You're not getting into details and dimensions yet, but I'm sure going back to the projects you've been on, and you can see the compromises that have happened because the architect didn't account for this or that, like maybe not enough of mechanical room space, or if there was going to be a media room or a home theater, the dimensions that they chose for the house didn't really accommodate exactly what the client wanted. There's all sorts of things that you've seen on your projects that if you could kind of come back and explain, well, these are some of the problems that we see on the projects when the technology was not part of the conversation. And even ask us, like, haven't you been to homes where we're going to get into the aesthetic planning right here? Like, another thing you could bring up is, haven't you been to projects where you might have really sweated out the way that the ceiling looks with the lighting design and how the lighting fixtures all fit into the ceiling? And then the integrator comes over and willy-nilly pops up a couple speakers that don't match the lineup or the shape. Have you seen that happen? They'll all go, yeah. Well, if we were part of that project early, that wouldn't have happened, because we would have lined everything up with the lighting, the apertures would have matched, it wouldn't even draw attention to itself, really. Yeah, so they see that value when you bring it up to them, but you have to be very specific. And this is a big one. You could say, hey, just by getting me involved early in your project, the client can never come back later in that build and blame you for something. Because, for example, it's happened, right? Where the client, let's say there's going to be a theater and now the dimensions aren't right, or, if we were been involved earlier, we didn't have the projector right here in the middle of the room. It could have been behind this wall and put in outside of the room with some projector glass, some port window glass. There's all sorts of neat little things that could have been done, but it's going to be too expensive due to change orders and project delays because the technology wasn't thought of earlier. Pockets for shades, these type of things. And that could put egg on the face of that architect. And it's really kind of their fault. They didn't accommodate it. And you could say, by bringing us involved, even if the client wants almost no technology, that's okay. But you've done your due diligence by showing them a menu of options. And so the onus is on them if they don't want it, and they want it later on. At least you brought it up. And I'll show you a little form that we created for you to help make that conversation happen very easily. With builders, same but a little different. Space planning is still a big issue. The key thing to bring up with them is that you should be hired before. This is a key point. tell the builders you need to be hired before they get an electrical, HVAC, or HVAC, electrical, or I'm missing one, framing, those three. Because if they don't get if you don't do the design for them first, there's going to be change orders, right? Electrician's going to have to add things later, and maybe have to reframe certain things to hide pockets and such. So to say, even if the architect gives you the plans and the low voltage has not been accounted for, which is usually the case, get me involved first. Again, I'm on the National Association of Home Builders. I'm part of their technical committee. And every time, and I love addressing builders, custom builders, because when I tell them that, it's kind of a pin drop moment. They're like, what? Technology designed before these trades? Yes. But when you explain it, they go, that makes perfectly logical sense. Zero pushback. When you explain why it's in their best interest, zero pushback. At least in my case, and I've talked to hundreds of builders sharing them this stuff here. And of course, they hate change orders and project delays. So yeah, get me involved earlier, and that will be not such an issue anymore. The other thing for builders is what's in it for them. They've all had the situation where the integrator was not returning phone calls because something broke. So they out of desperation, the client's calling the builder and say, maybe you could get these guys to come out here and fix this. So if you talk about your proactive customer service, assuming you have such a customer service policy, talk about that. Even if they don't ask you about your customer service policy, be proactive with it, because that is another concern in the back of their head. I'm like, are these guys any good? Are they going to take care of the client, or am I just going to inherit more headaches? So showing how you could minimize that, and also being their central, like it's almost like you're a project manager for other trades. And so that if you don't talk about this, they might think in their mind, oh boy, okay, so here we go, we're going to have a smart home, and there's all now the integration's talking to alarm and the pool and HVAC, these other trades. This is going to be a nightmare. I gotta now play orchestra conductor amongst all these trades and be the go-between. No, you tell them, if we're going to do a control system, I will take lead on that. I'm going to communicate with the other subs on there. My drawings will serve as the basis for communication, so we don't have the pointing fingers to each other. So when you bring that up, that makes their job easier, and they'll see you as a valued resource. So what's in it for them? That's the key thing. When you do that, then they'll see you as a vital team member. And that's what you need to do. Now, this is another major takeaway. And this is that they consider you a contractor and not a design or service company. But really, any good integrator is basically three companies in one. And you should talk about this on your website. You should talk about this in your discussions with them. And I'll share a little story, because this is kind of an eye-opener. So going back to my past, I was mentioning I was all into these lunch and learns. I loved doing this, getting out in front of these folks. And there's an architect in LA, one of the Architectural Digest top 100, still in the top 100, amazing firm. I did a series of 3 lunch and learns over a period of a few months, and I showed our drawings, like our drawings of device placement drawings and all this kind of stuff. And the weird thing that happened is, at the end of that series of 3, the owner takes me aside and said, hey, I appreciate you coming here and doing all this, but there's a problem. There's a disconnect. Okay, you act like you're a designer. I was confused. What do you mean? Like, of course we do design. What have I talked about? Or 3 different 1-hour sessions. What drawings have I shown you? We do design. But the weird thing is, he said, but you're a contractor. We don't bring contractors to the table early. So that took a while for me to digest that. So even showing design drawings, talking about design, still didn't land, because I didn't say, oh, that's one of our first phase. Our first phase is consultation and design. You kind of have to wear that as a key service that you do. So talk that up and talk up that you're really a three-phase company because you're thought of as one. You're just thought of as another contractor, right? So key takeaway point. We're going to get into this HTA design partner. I've teased this a little bit earlier, but the logo that we have, we baked that three-phase thing into the logo. Design, deploy, maintain. That's the three phases that you do. So talk that up on your, and I do see some more and more websites, some integrators doing that. That's awesome, but very key. So, and the other learning experience too, about that, I mentioned I had a 2-year stint in Axiom Design. So Axiom, before co-founding HTA. So Axiom Design in a nutshell is a design and consulting firm. They do design and engineering. They work with a client and the architect and designer builder, just like an integrator does. But the difference is they don't sell the product, nor do they install it. But they consult, they drop the plans, they figure out what products are going to go, they put that bid spec together, and then using that team's integrators that they might know, or Axiom Design themselves will suggest some integrators, it'll go out to bid. But here's the key thing. I was a consultant and a designer. I wasn't a contractor. And the owner of Axiom told me when I went to work for him, hey, now that you're not an integrator and you're a consultant, when you go back to those folks, they're going to respect you differently. You're going to talk to the big cheese and not the worker bees in the company. And I thought, I'm the same guy with a different phone number, same personality, no. But the scary thing is he was right. And it was really strange to go back to some other architect firms where I would do my lunch and learn, and like the junior architects would be there. But now that I'm a consultant, the principals were there. I'm like, oh my God, this is weird. So this is a true thing. But the thing that was so confusing to me is like, but all the good integrators really are consultants too. They're just not talking about that enough. They're not using that as a separate part of their services. They don't talk about it that way. A way for them to understand you and how your uniqueness is, again, to differentiate yourself from just the contractor, is explain that your relationship is similar to an interior designer's. And that will land on them, because what do I mean by that? You'll know this if you're working with designers. Interior designers are close with their clients, and they often get brought in to refresh things. I'm gonna refresh the bathroom, the bedroom, the kitchen. It's an ongoing relationship. Yours is like that. And you can tell them, guess what? Technology is not perfect. It's going to break at some point. We put the best stuff in, but technology is imperfect, and it's going to need service once in a while. And also, some technology is just going to go stale. Like, how old's your car? How old's your phone, right? Some technologies you're just going to replace because there's better stuff out there. We're part of this project, and we're going to be with your client for a long time. When you talk that way, they'll go, whoa, okay, they're not just in and out. That service first mentality is going to really help you. So I want to launch another poll here, and this is about charging for design. Just want to see how many of you are doing this right now. So I'm going to come back to this, and here we go. Let's launch this. What percent of the time are you charging for design? Okay, kind of mixed all over the place. But okay, now that more are doing it, the winner is 0 to 25% of the time. That's about the majority, just under 50% right now. 76 to 100% of the time, only 7%. So it's still, so thank you, by the way, for sharing that. There's still some room for improvement in there, because they are used to bringing consultants in, and consultants charge for their time. So what are we always told? You get what you pay for. So when someone's giving away design for free and putting proposals together and design and engineering documentation for free, maybe you charge for it, but you're charging it, as a line item later on, but you're not charging that up front. You kind of cheapen your services. Axiom design that company I work for. And there's not many consultants like them that are just pure low voltage consultants, but there are a handful. And they charge several thousand and in the tens, 20s, 30s of thousands of dollars for design and engineering. So they're doing it. So that is a service. And the way you can explain it is, it's like they're dating you, not having to marry you. Our processes, we're going to have a discovery meeting. I'm going to work with you, architect, designer. I'm going to come back with you and get your sign off on anything that is visual, like keypads, TVs, speakers, things like that. So you have sign off on there. There'll be no surprises. They will get that. They'll go, really? You're going to, so yeah, no surprises. We're going to figure all this stuff out ahead of time. They will endorse you. They will want someone that's proactive like that to work with. So they understand you need to charge for your time. It's not, you have either your team is going to put these drawings together. And if you don't do this yet, there are third-party firms out there that will be your kind of like your hired gun that could do this design and engineering documentation for you. But and if that's the case, they'll give you a sample set with your logo on there that you could show these folks, this is how we work together. This is the layer of that will add to your plan. So you know where the speakers go and you know what the keypads look like. So again, no surprises. This is great. This is a great way to do that. And what you'll find for those of you bold enough to do this and make that a part of your process is that it's easier for a client to say yes to a smaller number than yes to hundreds of thousands of dollars on a proposal. And you can tell them you're going to get a full design and so a buildable design is going to be the result out of this. And if you wanted to shop around, feel free to do so. Now you say that to give them like an out, but the reality is they almost never do that. Because if you do a good job during your discovery phase, they realize, oh my gosh, they really care about how I live in this house. They know the dog's name, the kids' names, how we like to entertain, what music we like, when we entertain. Like they really care about our lifestyle. And when they see that care and concern that you do, why do they want to go through all that again later on with somebody else? They don't. I mean, our close ratio when we started doing this at DSI was, I don't know what it was, but it's well over 90%. It's probably like 95 to 100%. It was very, very high. And HTA wasn't around back then. If HTA was around back then, it'd probably been 100%. If you're scared about this and like, I don't still feel uncomfortable, then do it this way. Charge a few $1,000s for that to design a consultation and then tell them, hey, you could shop this around, later on. But if you decide to go with us, we'll refund, part of it or all of it to you. So that's like kind of a way that you could test the waters, because now if they're serious, they'll take that offer on. If they're just tire kickers and all they care about is who's got the cheapest price, you don't want those people anyways. So really, this is a win-win thing. You want the profitable clients that care about what you do, right? So this is the way to do it. Key thing. Any questions about this thus far? We're good? Okay. So a couple of tools that we've done here at the Home Technology Association is build a budget calculator. I won't get into too much details here, but go to htacertified.org. It's a consumer-facing tool to get the conversation started about budget. You'll never have to ask ever again, and please never ask ever again what's your budget to a client, because they don't know. But sitting there with them, going through this calculator with them for 5-10 minutes, you'll get, not only will you get an idea of kind of, it prompts them on what technologies they're interested in, it puts out a realistic installed cost range, and it deflects the sticker shock away from you and onto an association. So you're not the bad guy. We're the bad guy for sticker shocking them. But here's the thing, we're an association. Clients trust our numbers. That's to your benefit. Builders like this too. This calculator is linked to from the National Association of Home Builders. So they got, 120,000 members? And they have access to this calculator. So it's powerful. It's a reference. Use it to your advantage. And when that builder calls up and says, ask you for that budget range, like which is impossible to quote when he gives you 3 sentences of information, send them to the calculator and they'll thank you for it. It could be and for those of the HTA folks on the call, you know that this already can be embedded in your website, so you don't even have to send them to HTA. It's an embeddable tool. Another key tool that I wish I could say we were so brilliant to come up with this, but this was actually a request from custom home builders that I work with in my role at NAHB, where they asked, after me being part of this group for about 2 years and representing what integrators do and all the expanded scope of what you do and why they need to bring you in early, all the stuff we're talking about, I'm preaching to them, and they came up and said, hey, we forget as builders the expanded scope of all the things integrators do. Can you give us a one-page cheat sheet that I could just hand to a client and they could check it off and I can hand it to an integrator? Brilliant. So we made this form, and for all the HTA folks, you already have this because we have branded it for you and your logo's on it. So this is another neat tool. And if you're an HTA dealer not using this, start using it. You'll be surprised how powerful this thing is. Either the printed one, hand it to them as a leave behind, or send them the digital copy. If you send them the digital one, if they click on the links that are on there, because it's got links in the PDF, and they go to our site, and has a tracking code, like a tracking cookie on there. So it'll always put you in the top of the dealer finder. And if they go to the budget calculator, again, from those links, we know it came from you. And when you get to the bottom of the budget calculator math, it'll say, would you like to send it to, whatever your name of your company is. There's a little checkbox because it knows it came from you. So this is such a killer little sheet that the integrators that are grasping this are reporting great feedback from this. Now for this, the rules of engagement, this is powerful as well. When I teach architects, designers, and builders today, and I find out there's 2 reasons they're not engaging you early. One of them is a lack of all the stuff you do. Like, wow, I didn't know integrators do shade design and lighting design and access control, the energy management. Even this big scope is so much bigger than they know. I'll guarantee you, go out there and pull 10 architects and 10 interior designers and 10 builders and ask them, what are all the things integrators do? And none of them are going to get it right. They're going to think you do this much, but you do that much. So one of them's that project technology assessment form's the cure, because it tells you all those things that you do. But the second one of them is going back to this 10% of integrators are good and the other 90% are not so good. You've got that to fight against, right? You've got the people that messed it up before you. You're working against that feeling. So we took on a project to interview these folks and say, okay, now that you know what's in it for you, and this is how you can benefit from bringing an integrator in early, what things would prevent you from doing that? And then they started telling us all the bad stories they had, the stuff that you already know, bad customer service. They argued with me in front of a client. They didn't consult with me. The stuff looked terrible. Bad aftercare service. The list goes on and on. You know all this stuff. Pushy salespeople was a big one. So what we did is made a code of conduct that we built in conjunction with them. I'm going to show it on our site here. That's that HTA design partner. So and there's basically 11 points to it. But what this was designed to do is to give you the do's and don'ts of what drawings to do, the behaviors to do, and the behaviors not to do in front of these folks with their input. So this is not like we figured this out and it's our invention. This was a crowdsourced with architects, designers, and builders. So the way we worded this is like, if we could, if we went back and forth to say, if an integrator behaved in this manner, now do you feel trusted that you could bring this person in as a design team consultant and go, give me that? Yes, this is I haven't seen an integrator that worked like this. A lot of them haven't. They don't know there's professional integrators out there that really do all this stuff. So some of this is drawings. I'm not going to get into granularity on it. Again, some of this is common sense, like work with the contract, but also about how soon to return phone calls. The design collaboration is really key. being proactive in communication, customer service, that's kind of self-explanatory. But the communication and respect, the no sales pitches. So this is the type of thing that will help. And also, as part of that, we let them know it's like if you want to make money off of an integrator, this is the way to do it. So we're even telling them, because again, this was built with their input, how they could be compensated if they so care, and in an above board way, not like, give me a bag of cash under the table. So this is, and I'll have a link to this page. Another thing that's really important about it, remember I mentioned earlier schematic design and design development and CD, all these different architect terms. There's kind of like right here, further recommendation to maximize professionalism and respect. If we read into this, there's a lot more tips that are in here as well. So a great page to know about the code of conduct, the rules of engagement. I'm going to go back to here. Any questions so far about this? Our timing is doing really good. So the three key takeaways that we talked about so far, there's a lot we went over, but if you had to walk away with just a few nuggets just to memorize, and you can come back again and watch the video and get into more granularity, but this is a big one. Trade partners think of you as a contractor. Change that perception. Talk up your design and consultation. Very, 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 very key. If you're not doing design and engineering documents, get that figured out before you go out and talk to these folks, because that's a key part of it, right? That's the way they communicate through plans. Make sure you could communicate that way too. Talk about what's in it for them. How do they benefit? How do their clients benefit from working with you? Take the focus a bit off you and put it on them. And we talked about the perception that our industry too has, because here's the funny thing about Home Technology Association. It's a sad thing to say, but the only reason there is a vacuum for us to exist is because this industry is so bad. If this industry were top performing, had a lot of respect, then there'd be no need for the Home Technology Association. But as it is, that top 10% integrators need a voice, need an advocate, need someone to help them prove that they're really good. So do everything you can to differentiate yourself from those AV guys, right? Show that you're the safe choice. If you're HTA certified, is a super powerful elevator pitch you have. If you opt in to the HTA Design Partner Program, which is a no-charge thing you could opt into for HTA dealers, that's something really to talk about. So here's how I do it. If I met a new builder, architect, designer today, I would totally change the script from how most people do it. I'd say, what do you do? Oh, I'm a home technology integrator. Probably not your favorite trade on the project, right? And they'll probably go, yeah, like, so what issues have you had with this trade? Is it the stuff didn't work, client confused, or, what issues have you had? And then let them talk. They'll probably vent. And you go, yeah, our industry is kind of a mess. It's a low barrier to entry industry. So, but I work for this firm and we're different and I can prove it. There is a standard of professionalism for what we do, and it's administered by this group called the Home Technology Association. Less than 10% of companies have that standard. It's a very tough thing to hit, and I'll send you a link to what that means. But we're a fully vetted firm, and also we're very design centric. We love to work with you early and make sure all the technology blends in, it hides away, and it's part of the process. And I'll send you a little link on our methodology working with you. And then drop it. You don't have to go on and on about HTA, but you said a couple things that are intriguing. And you didn't say, we're the best, we're the best. You just said, hey, there's a standard, we meet it. And I'm very proactive in working with designers and architects, builders, and I'll send you a link to what that means. Then you send them to the design partner thing. That will elevate you massively. It's because, again, it's built with their input. So there's other things, if you're looking at ways to, some things I'm going to get into because there's time, ways to find these folks, reach out to me. There's some other slides we didn't get into because they're not quite as important. You'll probably know most of that already. Find them on social media. But here's a tip as well. If you, going back to that other page, that QR code that took you to the HTA Design Partner page, I had that back here, didn't I? Somewhere. Thought it was. But if it's not, I forgot. I thought I had it in there. The QR code to the HTA Design Partner page. Reach out to me. My contact information's there, and I'll send it to you. But also on that page is a link out to all the different associations out there, like the Builder and Designer associations. If you join the local ones, which I highly recommend you do, don't join them unless you actually go to those meetings. There's zero benefit from just being a member and hanging your, your logo there. You have to meet these folks and build relationships. That's another key takeaway. It's very relationship driven. I joined a group out in Los Angeles called the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. Amazing association. They only have a handful of chapters, are not everywhere. But I went to all those meetings and I met some of the top architect, designer, builders there, and they're still sending DSI work. So be there, show up, be their advocate. It works. So here we are. An hour went by. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you picked up some tips. These work. They're time tested. 100% they work. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, or if you're not an HTA certified dealer listening to this and you want to learn more or share your sales process with me, if you want some input on that, I'm more than happy to help you, or any other topics along this thing. I'm very passionate about this topic because it's really what I want this industry to be more professional, and this is how you do it, right? With these trade partner relationships. So thank you everybody for being part of this, and keep an eye on your HTA dealer newsletters and our social media for other upcoming webinars and open discussions that we're having through Zoom meetings on other technology topics. Thank you, everybody.